Julian Assange joins me now live from his safe room in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. I'm also joined here in studio by his lawyer, Barry Pollock. We're less than 24 hours from finding out Manning's fate, Julian. You are, of course, somewhat confined, staying as you are in the embassy, but you're not in jail, which is where Manning may find himself living out the rest of his life. Do you feel any sense of responsibility, any sense of guilt? What are your feelings on the eve of this verdict?
Well, look, as the publisher involved in this case, there's no doubt that our publishing activities are connected in some way to Bradley Manning's fate. That's provided the embarrassment that the US government is working against. But first, let's contextualize. We heard lots of spin back in 2011, 2012 with people from Congress like Peter T. King placing bills for all our staff to be rendition declared enemy combatants before the Congress. And at that time, there were accusations that the material that we had published might, in some sense, lead to people coming to harm. Those have all been false. There's been no accusation in this entire case that any person has come to harm as a result of any of our publications which are alleged to be derived from Bradley Manning. In fact, quite the converse. There's Amnesty International reports that the Ben Ali regime in Tunisia, its overthrow by the people was directly triggered by these sorts of publications. And similarly, there's a wide range of investigations and prosecutions of individuals for torture, resignations of different figures in various places in the world as a result of corruption.
Yeah. Do you think, Julian, do you think the list of accomplishments, the Arab Spring and the other things you've talked about, do you think that is ultimately worth potentially the rest of this young man's life?
Well, it's not my place to weigh that up. Obviously, that's something that Bradley Manning has to weigh up. But in the alleged statements that he made, yeah, he was willing to take that risk from his alleged statements because he believes apparently that the result is so important. And we call those types of people that are willing to risk, not be a martyr, but to risk being a martyr for all the rest of us. We call those people heroes. Bradley Manning is a hero.
Let's talk about another person that I know you think is a hero, which is NSA leaker Edward Snowden. Yesterday, the Senate Intelligence Committee Chairwoman Dianne Feinstein suggested on CNN that Snowden may be leaking secrets to China and Russia. Let's take a listen.
He went to two big cyber intruding powers, China and Russia, and left China and went to Russia. You've got to ask, why did he choose those two? You've got to also ask, do the Chinese have all this material? Do the Russians have it?
Julian, what's your response to that? Why did he go to China and Russia, and do the Chinese and Russians have any of this material?
Well, look, this person, I'm not sure who it was, but some congressmen like Peter T. King, they're playing a particular sector. You know, they farm out fear to make it look like they're doing good work for the people who give them donations. And you can see that in the recent bill before Congress, that the votes to not investigate, not put controls on the interception of Americans' emails, well, it came from people who are predominantly funded by the military contractor industry in the United States. Mr. Snowden did not try to go to Russia. Mr. Snowden tried to go to South America. And the State Department, in the most idiotic diplomatic act of the age, cancelled his passport en route. So he was left stranded in Russia. We have exercised as much ability as we can to protect Mr. Snowden from any state, the United States, Russia and China, from exploiting him. But the US State Department has worked counter to that purpose, marooning him effectively in Russia.
Julian, I want to bring in Barry right now. Barry, how certain are you that the United States would try to extradite Assange if he was forced to return to Sweden, where there are some questions about his behavior in the past?
Well, I'm certain that Julian is at tremendous legal risk here in the United States. Ecuador found that. That's why they gave him asylum. He's invited the Swedish investigators to talk to him in London. They refused to do that. They're only willing to talk to him in Sweden. one has to wonder why they're trying to draw him out of the embassy.
Do you think if he left the embassy that he would immediately be snatched up and whisked off to the U.S.?
I think there is a tremendous risk that he would be taking if he left the embassy. Look, if you look at the Bradley Manning prosecution, he had already pled guilty to leaking classified information. That wasn't good enough for the U.S. government. They want to treat him as a traitor. They want to say that he's the enemy because he gave somebody truthful information to publish, and anybody can read that information. If you're at risk for life imprisonment as the person who leaks the information, think what the government thinks of you as the person who publishes the information.
Julian, before I let you go, do you have any predictions? What do you think the judge is going to decide tomorrow?
Look, there's a really serious issue here, which is the aiding the enemy charge. Now, the aiding the enemy charge is a charge that it's a military-based charge, but it applies to all of us. It's one of the few cases where the U.S. military can prosecute anyone under this. The precedent will be set where if you give information to a publisher, to a journalist, and they publish, then anyone in the world can read it. And the U.S. military is saying that means the enemy can be aided because Al-Qaeda, for example, could read that information. So this is a really serious attack. It is the most serious attack that the administration is pursuing in its war against investigative journalism. It will be the end, essentially, of national security journalism in the United States.
All right, Julian Assange and Barry Pollock, thanks so much. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you, Jake.